This is the M16, a brand new controller for a brand new era of fighting games. And if you're looking for a different option besides the normal PS5 or Xbox controller or even an arcade stick, then you're definitely going to want to check this thing out. Now, full disclaimer here before we get started, I was not paid to promote this product. And honestly, it feels really weird just saying that. So I hope that gives you the peace of mind knowing that this is a full unbiased opinion. If I say this thing is great, I mean it. If I say it's trash, I mean it. Now, the way I'm going to structure this is reviewing the controller, going over its specs and features, then I'll give you my thoughts with what I don't like about the controller, and then talk about the things that I do like, because I prefer to end on a high note. But here we have the M16 from Haute42. 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 I hear a lot of people say the name differently. I don't stinking know. Now, they have multiple sizes of this controller, some that are bigger and some that are smaller. I decided to go for the middle one just to be safe. But it came in this nice compact cardboard box with this foam inside to ensure that the controller is protected. And honestly, I was impressed at how this thing looks. This controller comes in with a whopping 16 buttons to use as inputs, which is kinda wild. I think originally the M series only had about 11. And if you're not used to these types of controllers, this can be a bit overwhelming. But you have, of course, the 4 directional buttons, and there are actually 2 up or jump buttons, depending on which game you're playing, that you can interchange and decide to use, whichever one fits your playstyle better. Then, of course, your 8 attack buttons. But on the top right of this pad, there are 7 additional buttons, which are turbo, left stick, right stick, minus, home, back, and start. Then on the top left, you have this little screen that's showing real time what inputs you're hitting, and it lets you know what game mode you're currently in, but we'll talk more about that later. I believe this pad is made of some type of aluminum, and I gotta say, it feels really sturdy, and it's definitely got some weight to it, which makes sense because of how compact it is. Now, along with the pad, you also get the instruction manual, a USB-C cable, and a few extra buttons, as well as the tool that'll help you remove whatever buttons need to be removed or replaced. The instruction manual is pretty nice. I like how compact it is. Right on the cover, it has all of the default button inputs, which is really nice, because obviously when I first got this thing, I didn't know what any of the buttons were. So this manual definitely comes in clutch when you're first learning this controller. But other than the basic inputs, it tells you what those inputs mean in the different modes. Now, there are 5 different modes. The first mode is X input, which is for Windows and Steam games. Then there's Switch mode, PS3 or Android mode, PS4 mode, and then keyboard mode. When I first got this and wanted to try it out on my PlayStation, I could not figure out how to change the mode. So I had to email their tech support and they helped me out. But all you got to do is make sure you're holding down the right input for whatever specific mode you want to play in before you plug the controller in. So if you wanted to use PS3 mode, you'd hold down the X input, then plug in the controller. It shouldn't have been that confusing to me, but I'm just stupid. Another feature is the D-pad modes, for if you wanted to play something other than a fighting game. Although I wouldn't really recommend it because I feel like this would be kind of uncomfortable and inconvenient. You're better off just playing with a PlayStation controller. But that's just me. The last feature I want to talk about here are the RGB LED settings. You can adjust the brightness, change the color of specific buttons, give it a certain pattern, and every time you input a button, it lights up. So that's a pretty cool detail. And let's be honest, LEDs just make everything cooler. So now we've gone over some of the main features of this controller, I want to talk about the cons, the things that I don't really like about it. Probably one of my biggest issues with this controller is that none of the buttons are marked. Now, to be fair, I completely understand that because they want this to be as customizable as possible. You could make any one of the buttons whatever input you wanted it to be, but it would be nice if on the actual button, they had the default input that it's set to. Because I mean, when you just look at this, you don't really know what's what. It's kind of hard. I will say though, that is where the LEDs do kind of come in handy if you color coordinate them, but that's more of a minor issue. I would say the bigger problem lies with the buttons on the top right of the pad. The left stick, the right stick, the minus, the home button. These aren't marked at all either. They're just lined up. They all look the same. I think a good idea for these would be to have them color coded, and I guess you wouldn't even have to do all of them, but just the start button at least. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of how they feel, but they're alright, I guess. Staying on the topic of buttons, these guys are pretty big. Now, that isn't really a bad thing, it just takes some time to get used to, because on my previous controller they weren't this big, and because this is such a small space, your hands are pretty close to each other, or at least mine are. I've got big hands. Now, my last and probably biggest gripe about this controller has to do with the PS5. That's right, this controller is not compatible with PS5 games. I don't know why that's the case. That just seems like a huge oversight to me, but I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong, you can use this on a PlayStation 5, but you have to buy a USB wireless adapter. I personally use the Mayflash Magic S Ultimate. You can get this thing off of Amazon for like 30 bucks. I'll leave the link in my description down below. All you do is plug this bad boy directly into your PS5, then plug the USB-C right into it, then connect it to your controller, make sure you're in PS4 mode, and you're good to go. You do have to install something on it though. There's a whole video about it that explains it pretty well. I'll leave that in the description down below as well. For Xbox players, there's another version of this on Amazon that you can get as well. So just keep that in mind when considering buying this controller. In order to use it to play Tekken 8 or Street Fighter 6, you have to get that adapter. Alright, but enough of what I dislike about this thing. Let me tell you all the things that I love about it. First off, obviously, the size. You can compare it to my hand, you can compare it to my old controller. This thing is compact and I love it. I'm going to EVO this year and this is going to fit in my backpack way easier than my old controller would have. I pack light. And honestly, that alone was enough for me to really consider this controller. I also just really love how the buttons feel when you press them and the sound that they make. Just the feeling and the click sound lets you know you hit that input. Speaking of the buttons though, the LEDs are so nice, dude. I mean, I guess technically you could play with this in the dark if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but hey, why not? Also, just the feeling of this, man. This feels like real high quality stuff. It doesn't feel light and cheap. You can see the rubber on the bottom so that doesn't slip around when you place it on a surface. My old hitbox was thick enough that I could have it on my lap, but this guy's so thin, I just put it on my desk. And it's kind of just like typing on a keyboard when you play on it. So I really like that about it. Now, I am still getting the hang of this controller because I'm not used to my thumb being the jump button. So it is a bit of a learning curve, but I really do think that it's worth it. But without a shadow of a doubt, the best thing about this controller is the price. I don't really see how you can beat it, man. For this specific model on Amazon, it's $117. So if you add in that adapter, that's $150 right there for what I think is a really solid pad, and honestly might improve your performance in fighting games. I just find these easier than controllers because with a controller, I'm holding it and my fingers just feel kind of cramped. The buttons aren't as big. So once I started using this thing, I could not go back. So there you have it. There's my review. If you want some more information about this product, I've got links down in the description for you, or you can check out other YouTube videos that have maybe reviewed it, because who knows, they might have gone over stuff that maybe I missed. But that'll do it for this video. I'm honestly not used to making this type of content, reviewing products and stuff, but let me know what you guys thought about this video in the comments down below. And also a huge shout out to Haute42, HAUTE, Audi, however you say your company name, for providing me with this product. I really love this thing. But for those of you that are new to the channel and are still watching this video, just know that I mainly do Tekken 8 content, so if you're a Tekken fan, consider checking out some of my other stuff. But as always, thank you again so much for watching, and you'll see me in the next video.